Welcome to the Roy Matlock Jr. Money and Business Hours, where he'll help you fix your finances once and for all. To reach Roy, call 615-843-2999. That is 615-843-2999, or visit RoyMatlockJr.com. Now, here's your host, Roy.
All right, Roy Matlock Jr. here, and we are talking money, and today is going to be a different show. I'm always talking about your finances, about how to get your finances fixed. But I had one of my reps, advisors, she told me, she said, you should talk about the mindset of, how you handle things and how you operate, because the mindset ends up becoming what is the outcome of, your life and everything you do and stuff like that. So what I want to do today, I'm going to kind of bring it back. Obviously, it all will come back into the same stuff I always talk about, which is getting ahead financially and making good decisions that way. But, the greatest investment that you're ever going to make in your lifetime is the investment in your mindset. All right. And the way you think and the way you know and the stuff that you become an expert in. I've always believed that if you're listening right now, if you're having a problem financially, you can narrow it down to one of two things, and there's other things, but the two primary reasons is the first one, you're just not making any money. And so, it's very difficult. If in today's world, I hear people complaining about gas prices, and they complain about, rent prices, and they complain about food, and they complain about everything. And what they really need to be complaining about is their income. All right, because their income is just not big enough to deal with that. And I'm not saying this as I'm somebody that is above other people, but I couldn't tell you how much gas prices are when I go to the pump. I have no idea. I stick my card in and I turn it on and the gas fills up, and I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. I don't pay attention to the pumps. Because what I did is I went out and I did the effort and did the work to get to a point where that is not something that's so important to me anymore, because I make enough money that I don't end up having that issue. Now, when I say that, that's just one example of why you need to get into something that you like. And if you can find something you like, you will always make more money. If you don't like it, you're not going to make any money. So the first mindset that I run into is people that if they are having challenges with their finances, the first thing I always look at is how much money you're making. And, there's nothing I can do for people that just their income is just really low. And if you're hurting right now when it comes to your finances, one of the things you need to first look at is your income. And is your income a problem? All right. Now, I don't mean you got to be rich. All right. But you got to make a certain amount of money to be able to just survive. I think right now, the least amount of money, if you want to rent a 1-bedroom apartment in Nashville, I read you need to make $68,000, all right, to be able to do that. So you can tell prices are ridiculous. And so that's the first step. So you have to ask yourself, what if I could increase my income 25% or 50% or 100%? What would it do to my financial picture? And it'll do a lot. And so how do you increase your income? Number one is you increase your value proposition, but most importantly, you find something you like doing and you become an expert at it. And then once you become an expert at it, then you're always on your game. How do you become an expert? Well, you're always looking to find more knowledge. I grew up with my dad, who was an avid reader. He didn't finish high school, but he went on to become highly successful, had a company that had 400 employees that he ended up selling one day, manufacturing. He would read the encyclopedia, the world books from cover to cover, just to have more knowledge, more, things to talk about and things like that. And so, number one, we start with our income, and the key to the income is we find something we like doing. And then that way we're not complaining about what we do. You're not thinking about, when can I retire? I'm 65 years old. I have no desire to retire. I had a lady, I was on the phone, her and her boyfriend, they were in their 70s, and they were talking about, retirement and stuff like that. And they're traveling all over, and that's fine. All right. For me, I think I'd go crazy if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, because it's not work to me. It's fun. I like helping people. I like adding value to their life and things like that. And so the first step is find something that you never plan on quitting. Also, I have a life because I built a business. How did I do that? I had other people in systems and tech. I do all the things because I read all the time that allows me to have time and money, which is the goal for everyone, is to have time and money. And so we start with that. And then the second issue, if you're having issues with your finances, then you need to have someone work with you. And that's what we do. We work with people. And it's not just if you have issues, if you're doing good. It's funny, I meet people all the time that have done really well financially, and they don't have a lot of money. Or I have others that they worry about their money, even though they're in great shape, they just don't know. And then you have others that they need some help. They need just some pure help on the basics of getting things going. So there's income problems and there's spending problems, but most of all, there are mindset problems. And I've spent years, with people where they're looking for the perfect investment. Well, the perfect investment's not the answer. The answer is put more money in and get a good investment. And so we put people into things like that. We don't try to predict the market. The most important asset you'll ever own is you and your ability to go out and make things happen. And so let's talk about it. All right. When we go in, the marketplace in this world rewards value. And so you should ask yourself, if you're really at that point in your life right now that you want to get things going in the right direction, what is the right direction? I always say, hey, if you've got time and you've got money, you've got a great life. If you have a big gap between your income and your outgo, that's a de-stressor. The biggest de-stressor you'll ever get outside of having good health would be to have a big gap between your income and your outgo. So how do we do that? Well, we start with the value proposition. The marketplace always rewards value proposition. What is it you can do that no one else can do, that you can do better than people can do? And go find people that value that. I have a lot of business. I have more business than I can ever get around to, and I have advisors to help me, and I do all that kind of stuff. And the reason that I have more business, I believe, is because I have done the work to be able to have the knowledge so people go along with me because they feel like, hey, this guy probably knows what he's doing. And the fact that if you've listened, I was on the airplane coming home yesterday, and I was talking to the people sitting next to me, and the guy in front of me, he says, I know you. You're the guy on the radio. I'm like, yeah, that's me. And he said, you give good advice. And the advice I give comes from working hard. I've never been told I'm lazy. And so if you're starting right now, you're listening, and you're wanting to get ahead and really get it going, I'm going to talk to you about the mindset of getting what you want, which is that freedom, that time and money. Visit RoyMatlockJr.com if you'd like help when it comes to your money. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Roy Matlock Jr. Money and Business Hours, where he'll help you fix your finances once and for all. To reach Roy, call 615-843-2999. That is 615-843-2999, or visit RoyMatlockJr.com. Now, here's your host, Roy.
All right, today's show, we're talking how to make money, but most importantly, what is the foundation of getting ahead? And it starts with the way you think and your mindset. The two problems that most people have, they have financial problems, they have an income problem, which I think is the number one problem. Because one of the things about if you fix your income, now how do you fix your income? You offer more value. You're going to be paid for that. The more problems you solve, the more money you earn. So I meet with people all the time, and when they get through, I've had people tell me, they say, man, I feel better. All right. And then I feel better because I know that what I'm doing is providing value for what I do. And so as a result, I've been able to earn money as a result of providing more value. So let's start with, how do you provide more value? More problems solved, more people you help, more opportunities come along because you become more known. I start looking at, I got a grandson going to be coming. And first one, so I tell people now I'm officially old, and so my daughter is having a little boy, and I'm thinking about that. I'm like, all right, what would I, know what I know? I have kids, and I look at my kids and I say, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? And what would I do now? If I'm going to teach, a grandson, taking more than one generation of now I'm in the second generation, dad for the sake of a grandfather. And what would I do? How would I teach? Well, the first thing I would do is for a young son, and some of you guys will be like, yeah, that's right. Some of you ladies may say, he's crazy. But anyway, one of the things I do, the first thing is I told him, I said, I'm going to teach him take him to get martial arts so nobody will mess with him. And early on, I told my daughter one day what's going to happen. You're going to get a call from the school where he kicked somebody's rear, and that'll be the last time you'll hear it, because then he'll have a reputation. Nobody will mess with him. So I think that's important for a young kid, not to go beat somebody up, but it's important to be able to take care of yourself. The second thing, I'm going to teach him how to play golf, because I've learned that if you know how to play golf, people like playing golf with you, and they invite you. I'm a scratch golfer. I've been invited to places that if I were a 30 handicap golfer, I would never get invited to. And I've been able to meet people in places, tends to be people that are golfers. A lot of them have businesses and stuff like that. So I've met a lot of business contacts that way. The next thing is I want to teach someone how to, teach them how to be able to have social skills. If you want to move forward in life, having a negative, dull, disillusioned attitude about life will get you nowhere but bad. Nobody wants to be around negative, disillusioned, crybaby type people that are always got a chip on their shoulder, and people don't want that. And so you have to work on your social skills. How do you work on your social skills? You read books. One of the first books I read was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I've always tried to make a point to respect people. I don't care what they're doing. I see people, that disrespect the waiters, and they disrespect, come on. I appreciate it. I eat out a lot. I like the waiters and the cooks and everybody. If it wasn't for them, I would starve to death. And so what I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm not always looking to get something in return for being good to someone. And when you start doing that, you start developing friendships. Those friendships, they trust you, they like you. And in the place with what I do is I have long-lasting friendships that would refer me, and it helps business. It helps your personal life, everything that goes along with it. And so you're working on this. You don't ever want to be considered someone that anyone would ever call you lazy. All right, you need to ask yourself, would anyone ever think I'm lazy? I've been called a lot of things, all right, but the last thing that anybody would ever accuse me of is being lazy, all right? That would be like the last thing ever that anyone would say. So the first step, if you want to move forward, is you got to accept the fact that you have to work hard, and if you don't work hard, you're not going to get ahead. All this work smart stuff comes later, but even working smart and not hard offsets the hard work, so it doesn't really get you ahead. So the way you get ahead is you work hard, and then because you're working hard, you look at the feedback that you're getting. In the business that I'm in, if I meet with someone and they do business with someone else, I want to know why. I don't want to get mad. I want to know what happened. And I want to then change what I'm doing if I did something wrong. So I want to learn from my hard work and then document practices that allow me to improve. All right. And then over time, you develop a system. All right. And the system has got, I call it the GPS. What is your goal? What is your plan? What is your schedule? With schedule being the most important thing, you got to show up, and then you start working on all of these skill sets. What are your skill sets? You ask yourself some questions. Am I becoming more valuable every year? All right. What do I know today that I didn't know, last week or yesterday? You need to be an avid reader. You need to think about, what is it you get on social media, and what are you reading about? A bunch of junk? Or are you letting, hours a day pass you by because you're a bunch of junk? I remember back in the days, when I went on the radio, Dave Ramsey and I went on the radio, I told all of my reps, I said, disconnect the antenna on your car. And we started, before I got on the radio, I said, disconnect your antenna and only listen to cassette tapes. And those cassette tapes were training tapes. So I'm like, your car is your university. If you want to learn how to help people with their money, we had training tapes to teach people about money and finance and stuff like that. So when you're driving down the road and you got an hour a day, let's just listen to an hour worth of tapes rather than music. And when you do that, what's going to end up happening is you got an hour times 365 times 5 years. You've got 1,800 hours of personal finance training on how to, go help people. I think you'll be pretty good at it. And so I train people that way about making sure that their time was being spent on self-improvement, reading books. Back in the early days of my business, we had and I had hundreds of reps out there all over the place. And we had a book of the month, and I would go to the bookstore, pick out a book, and I would bring like 200 books to the office. And it might have been that Dale Carnegie book or whatever it may be. And I would take those books, and people would throw in back then $5 in a basket, and they would get those books, and we would read them. We did book reports on them. And what happened is people started learning, and they got better. And when I was early in the business, I started when I was 24 years old. And then when I went on the radio, I was like 31 or 32. And people would come walking in. And, of course, radio, a lot of you, if you watch the internet now, you can watch me do the radio show. Or if you get on our social media. But before that, the radio, we used to say, hey, man, I got a radio face. Nobody's ever seen me. It doesn't matter what I look like. And so no one had any idea who you were or anything like that. And so then they would show up to my office and they're like, who's the kid? All right. I mean, I was 31. I looked like I was 16, and I would have a bookshelf behind me. I said, I know you probably are. I'd make a joke sometime that, hey, hang on a second, I'm going to get my dad in here. But I was the guy on the radio. I was the one giving advice, and I was always scared to death somebody's going to ask me a question I didn't know the answer to. And so I had a bookshelf behind me, and that bookshelf behind me had all the different books I'd read. Because what I wanted to do is, you can be in a business for 20 years and have 1 year of experience, or you can have 20 years of experience where you're learning the whole time. It's a big difference. And so if you're out there right now, what you want to be thinking about is, am I learning something new that I can apply? Am I improving my communication? Am I reading? Do I have a system to read? I wake up every morning, and if I have any time left, I have algorithms built into social media and to my news feeds that send me stuff that I want to get better at, personal finance, running a business, marketing my business, golf, okay, healthy, type living, all that kind of stuff. And so what you want to do is you want to create an outcome that will allow you to get what you want, which everybody wants, which is freedom, time and money, financial freedom, having a gap between your income and your outgo. So that's what we're talking today. Stay with me. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Roy Matlock Jr. Money and Business Hours, where he'll help you fix your finances once and for all. To reach Roy, call 615-843-2999. That is 615-843-2999, or visit RoyMatlockJr.com. Now, here's your host, Roy.
All right. If you're tuning in today, different show, talking about the mindset of, building your income and building your finances with a focus on your thinking and the way you go about doing things. And I wanted to let you know about this. We have got literally opportunities within our financial advisory business that is just, bigger than we can even hardly keep up with all the different people in the business that we're doing. And so we're always looking for key people. So if you're a connected person, someone that knows people, does business in your community, and has influence in your network, then you should consider joining our system. We have referral partner programs. We have realtors. We have mortgage people. If you're a CPA or attorney, if you own a business, or you're in sales, or you're just a connected social type person and you'd like to find a way to get involved in something different that you could add more value to people, you could put yourself in a position to maybe make a career change. If you're looking for something like that, we have a system. And our system is designed to teach and train you about money. and about how to market yourself and run a business. And we have all the tools. Been doing this for 40 years. Go to roymatlockjr.com and find the where it says join the team, or find out about becoming a financial advisor, and we will teach you. I have trained so many people to be able to do stuff like that. And so we're talking about self-improving and with the goal of getting financial freedom. So here's some of the things that I hear going on when I meet with people. They're worried. They're worried that AI is going to replace their job. All right. Matter of fact, I have a friend of mine that AI really did replace his job, and he was in the film editing business. But the difference with what happens when you have a skill set, and his skill set is he's great with people and he's a worker and he knows what's going on that way, you can pivot into certain things. I don't think AI is going to replace the personal aspect of, being able to deal with people. So if you have great people skills and you're a hard worker and you've got a skill set and you have a mindset that you're going to always be up to speed, you can pivot. So the question is, if your employer disappeared tomorrow, could you replace your income quickly? I fully believe that if for some reason I couldn't do financial services, that I would be fine. I don't ever see that happening, but I would be fine because I understand a lot of things, about marketing, and I've done a lot of different businesses, and a lot of it goes back to, starting when I was a kid. I learned something when I was a kid. I was 16, and I learned two things when I was 16. I got a job at the newspaper, and the newspaper had delinquents that didn't pay their paper bill. And so the first job I got was they paid me $1.60 an hour and 10% of what I collected. And I collected delinquent paper bills, knocked on people's door. Get this, knocked on people's door when I was 16, and they would pay me their bill. We go collect, if you can imagine that. That was their collection way of doing it. And so I did that. And the way I found out about it is I had a friend of mine that he got a job there. And he went and knocked on some doors for about 2 weeks. And fortunately, he told me about this job before he got his feelings hurt and quit doing the job. And I saw people start and quit. And because they didn't like, being uncomfortable. For me, though, I was like, man, they're paying me 10% of what I collected. And back when I was 16, now I want you guys to think about this. It's in 1977, 78, something like that. I would go out on a Saturday and make $100 in commissions on collecting money for the Tennessean right here in Nashville, the paper where people forgot to pay their bill. They didn't mail it, and they would hand me, and I would turn in the cash, and I got 10%. Well, that was when the minimum wage was $1.60 an hour, and I could go make in one day 60 hours as a 16-year-old. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing anything ever that doesn't give me an incentive-based, no salary, no job. I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to be my own boss and do my thing. And then after that, I left that, and I got into another thing that everyone quit, and that was I was selling Cutco knives. And so I started that, and fortunately I met up with someone. This is another thing. Find somebody that knows about, how to do things, and you can learn. You can pole vault your timetables if you get with someone that knows what they're doing. So I got trained by the same guy that, if you've ever heard of a guy named Zig Ziglar, I had two guys here in Nashville, Jim White and Vestal Hardin. Those two guys had been selling Cutco knives and cookware since college, and they were in their 50s. And I'm like, man alive. And they got trained by the same one that trained Zig, and they taught me how to do it. And next thing you know, here I am. I'm 18, 19 years old, and I'm out there beating the streets and making $200 or $300 in a day. And I'm like, wow, okay, I bought a car, bought a boat, made all the dumb decisions, but I did know how to make money. And I learned things about dealing with people and working with people. But the bottom line is that I got with some mentors, and I figured out that my life was going to be as a business owner. I was never going to, go to work somewhere. First off, I had, if you're out there right now and you didn't finish college, I'm one of those. Not only did I not finish college, I had bad grades in an easy college. But I did take some accounting courses and a few marketing courses, and I figured out that, I could probably knew more about marketing back then and doing business than the business people teaching it. So I'm giving you some background information on how you start moving forward. So then you learn from one thing and you move on to the next. I applied back during the period I was collecting. I wrote a letter, and we had a little bag, and I put an envelope at their door. But I wrote a letter saying, look, if you'll mail this in, I'm in high school, and I asked for help, and I would appreciate it if you'd mail it in this envelope, and I'll get credit for it. And so I learned that. My dad told me that. He was a big direct mail person, and he had a whole printing press where he had his own system of direct mail and stuff like that. And so I learned that, and I tried it, and it was like amazing. I would show up, and there'd be envelopes with my name on it at the Tennessee, and I was like, this is cool. I'm opening up checks and earning money. And so I started doing that. And then the first two things I did, I didn't know what to do with my money. So I had an income scenario, but I didn't have a good system. I bought a boat. Think about this. I'm 20 years old. I bought a new car. I bought two new cars. I bought a Z28 Camaro one time, and this is all from my little side gig, jobs. And then I bought a Mazda RX-7. It was the hot car, and then I bought a boat. And then I got involved in the financial business, and I'm like, golly, what a dummy. Okay, I made all this money, and man, what would have happened if I was 20 years old and 18 years old and took some of that money and put it into an investment? Well, then I had to go start over again because, I had to learn a new business. And this time I was, married, and I had to be responsible. And so then I went from driving Z28s and RX-7s to buying two VW diesel Rabbits in order to get out of debt and not have car payments and start moving forward. So all these things you start looking at, you learn. You say, what did I learn from this? What did I learn from that? What am I going to improve? And you start working on getting yourself out of this mess that you might be in. If you wake up on Monday morning hating your job, then you should listen to what I'm saying today. Don't continue that forever. Now, you can't just quit. You always change. That's what I've always said. You change from one place to the next. I made a decision a little over 4 years ago to leave a firm, a national firm, in order to start another firm. And it was a big risk, but I did it because I wanted to get better. I wanted to do that kind of stuff. And so what you want to do when you're thinking about moving forward, understand investing in yourself is the most valuable investment that you'll ever have. Every new skill increases your value. Every new relationship creates opportunity. Every book or whatever you read, podcast, changes the way you think, either good or bad. My name is Roy Matlock Jr. If you want more information about anything we do, visit roymatlockjr.com. We have one more segment. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Roy Matlock Jr. Money and Business Hours, where he'll help you fix your finances once and for all. To reach Roy, call 615-843-2999. That is 615-843-2999, or visit roymatlockjr.com. Now, here's your host, Roy.
All right, we're finishing up, and today is, increase your income, create a gap, work on the mindset. Let's do the building blocks for, getting ahead. I'm kind of talking, if you're just tuning in, about, how I came up and how I tried every time to learn from mistakes, find people that knew more about what I'm doing, what I'm wanting to be successful in than I do, find mentors. I've always believed this, that the fastest way to learn is to learn from someone else's experience. That's why, if you're a reader, I used to say this, readers become leaders because they know more. No one wants to follow someone that they know more than they do. So if you want to be in a leadership position in any kind of business, I don't care, church, whatever it may be, the reason people are willingly going to follow you is because you know more. All right. And they aspire to be where you're at, and they figure that the best way to get there is to listen All right. And then they start becoming leaders themselves. And one of the key elements is you want to be thinking about what value am I bringing to the people around me, and how do I bring more value? And then you become in a leadership position. And that's how you eventually, if you look at one of the things, I think most people know I'm in Tennessee. I'm a conservative. I voted for Donald Trump. So if you don't like that, we're in a country, you have the choice to do business with people that you disagree with or not, whatever it may be. But one of the things that amazes me most about what he does is he's got so many people doing so many things that are high-level leaders that have come in to work with him, all right? And so that's what you have to do if you want to really create something. You start finding people who want to be around you because you bring value to the table. One new skill can increase your income for the rest of your life. Give you a little story. Back in the early days, in the early 90s, I had been in the financial advisory business for 5 or 6 years, and I was always trying everything I could to be able to get established. And we were in the office one day, and we used to listen to a talk show on one of the local radio talk stations that I'm on. I'm not going to say it because I'm on 2 different ones. But anyway, listen to that talk show, and we always would comment the guy was giving bad financial advice. And one of the ladies in my office says, "You should do that radio show. You would be better on that radio show." And I started thinking about it. And then a couple weeks later, almost like 2 weeks later, we heard the guy was going off the air. Now, I want you to think about this. You're listening to the radio. Somebody gave you an idea. Now, I could have taken that idea and said, "Nah, I've never been on a radio station. I don't know how to do radio. What am I doing?" And so at that time, we heard that, and I picked the phone up and I called Dave Ramsey, who was one of my friends at the time, and he had become was actually a rep and had his license with me, and so he had been in the real estate business and had just gone bankrupt. So he was at the pits, and I call him up. I knew Dave was motivated, and I was like, "We should go down to this radio station and see if they'll let us do this radio show, and we'll talk about personal finance. You can talk about real estate and bankruptcy and debt and all that kind of stuff, and let's see what happens." So we show up to the radio, and the radio station was in bankruptcy. And we tell the guy we have an idea and for a radio show in the morning, and take that hour that you just lost. The guy just went off the air, and the guy that ran the radio station, he's like, "Look, we're in bankruptcy. We have no money." And we're like, "We'll do it for free." And the next thing you know, we're on the radio. I'd never been a guest on a radio show. I had never been in a radio station. I don't think I ever went one time when they were doing giveaways, nothing. I'd never been to radio. And we started doing a radio show, and we called it The Money Game. It was the name of a brochure that I used from the company that we were doing business through, the financial company, How to Win the Money Game. So we called it The Money Game, and that was how the thing began. And before you know it, we were having a popular radio show. What did we do? We went out and into the public, and we started doing seminars and meeting people, and they gave us 3 hours, and we thought we were great. They gave us 3 hours and put us against Rush Limbaugh, and we found out that really wasn't good. Anybody that was against Rush Limbaugh, they assumed was going to get destroyed, and they just wanted to fill in the blanks if they didn't have Rush Limbaugh. And we beat Rush in Nashville. Wasn't fair because we were out there doing boat. We rented the General Jackson and did a dinner seminar there, at Opryland. Did all kinds of stuff to build our brand. But one idea can change directions for you. So if you have one of those ideas, go implement it. The world will pay you for being an implementer that does it quickly. I didn't think about it. I just went and did it. It was one of the different, 1,000 different ideas that we attempt to do, and they don't work. Most of them, don't go big time. But you do things like that. If you have an idea right now, one idea, all right, one idea, look at how to do it. Become good at it. Investigate it. If you think it's a get-rich-quick scheme, you're going to lose your money. All right. I never looked at it as a get-rich-quick. If you think about going on the radio, we did the radio show, I think, for 3 years and never got paid. All right. We did it strictly to get our name out there. Now, they did give us a few little promotional things that we would do some trading, and we brought our friends on, and see if we could get something, but we never got paid, all right, doing that. And I did that for 9 years, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. We started getting paid, obviously, after about the third year. But the point being is I went in there, didn't know what I was doing. And, we were probably not very good at the time. All right. But what we did do was we took action. And so there's no investment return that's going to be better than going out and improving your skill set and taking action. So if you're right now wondering about, what you should be doing, you need to act on it. All right. You need to decide. You need to go find something. Success leaves clues. I study people who have done well. Fortunately, I'm now have been in a situation where I've done well for myself for a long time. And so I'm also around people that do well. I mean, you can pretty well take the group of people you hang out with and average their income of the 5 people you spend most of your time with, and that's going to be about what your income is. So what you want to do is make sure that the people you're hanging out with have got the same kind of mindset as you, that they want to get ahead. And it's funny, I've got some friends around Nashville that we all grew up together. We were all out there hustling, and they've all gone out and built successful businesses in all different types of things, from real estate. I've got a sleep apnea friend of mine. I got, a lot of Chuck that started all the timeshare stuff. These are guys that I played golf with when I was 19, 20 years old, and we were out there trying to figure things out. And so what you want to do, different educations, different careers, but they have similar habits. All right. And those habits are they have a vision and direction. They have written goals to where they wake up every day and they're able to look at it. They have a plan in place that they're going to go be successful. They take negative feedback and they don't get their feelings hurt. All right. So if you get your feelings hurt every time somebody criticizes you, all right, or attacks you, you are going to always, have your feelings hurt. Somebody's going to disappoint you every day. It's just the way it is. I heard this years ago that, if you're at the top of the flagpole, someone's always trying to shoot you. All right. And they got a good target right on your rear. All right. And so if you're at the bottom, nobody's going after you. And so what you want to do is start thinking that way. You start thinking, wow, if someone else can do it, I can do it. I mean, if you think about I think the number is 250,000 kids play minor league football, and one of them gets in the NFL. Why would anybody even try? All right. Well, because somebody had a big vision. All right. And they were going to do it, and you look at, now look at the golfers. I mean, we know, like, I bet if people that are non-golfers, you could probably say, name 5 golfers that you know. And this is 5 in the whole world of golf. And you'd say Tiger Woods, and maybe Rory McIlroy or whatever, Jack Nicklaus, people that you know of. But those guys went out and did it. And so what you have to do is have a vision, see the possibilities, become lifelong students. All right. So you're always learning. You need to learn, build relationships. You solve problems. You work hard when it matters more than it doesn't mean all the time. You got to learn how to manage your time in such a way that you get the most productive thing done at every possible moment. So you go out. Now, I use technology in a big way. Tech probably gives me 20 hours a day extra. So if you don't use tech and you don't learn how to use it, then you're competing with somebody that knows how to use it. And it's just amazing what you can do if you learn how to do things. Most importantly, they take responsibility. They don't blame the economy. They don't blame their employer. If you have problems with your employer, then the best thing for you to do is find something else. Maybe you can do it better than them. If your complaints are they don't know what they're doing, well, go prove that you know what you're doing in the same business and go start your business. And they're always asking themselves, what can they do better than I was able to do yesterday? And if you always are thinking that way, you'll start seeing your money problems disappear. One of the things I've always said is this: make more money. What's it going to be like if you double your income? Here's the key to everything. We're talking money always. We're talking about, setting your plan up, having your defense, having your offense. But one of the things you want to do is you want to have a goal of saving and investing 25% of what you make. And we always want to automate that. Now, if you're not there yet, well, then guess what? I had a show just recently called The Secret of $500 a Month, to where if you save $500 a month and automate it into an investment, it can change your life. We work with all types of people when it comes to money. If you're new and you're trying to get started, one of the things we do, we set up $250 accounts for grandkids just so they can get started. So my name is Roy Matlock Jr. If you would like to find out more about what we do, either as a client, go to roymatlockjr.com, or if you would like to be a part of our system out there helping people get their money together, possibly a career change, visit us or call us at 615-843-2999.